Good evening. My name is Catherine Kaplan, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the first information session for the 66 affordable rental units at AltaRevolution in Somerville. I'm just going to hold this up now. We have some translation services if you should need them. All right, and just a few logistical notes before we get started. Just want to call your attention to the description section below the video on your screen. More information is listed in there, including a link to the online application for AltaRevolution. So go ahead and take a look at that, as well as it has the information that I just showed up to the screen about translation services that are available should you require information in a language other than English. So the email address and phone number that you may contact for those translation services is listed in the description, as well as we just want to let you know we will accommodate you and provide answers to questions in your primary or preferred language. If you're watching this session on a mobile device, the description section that I just referenced can be viewed by pressing the small down arrow that is below the video to the right of your screen, and it's going to expand and show you the additional information that I was just referencing. So I know some of you have already found the chat bar here. If you have any questions during this session, you are encouraged to go ahead and type those into the chat to the right of the video screen. And this includes questions in another language. Brian from SEB is already answering questions over there, and he will be helping to answer chat questions during this presentation. He'll be using Google Translate as needed. And we also have a representative from AltaRevolution's leasing office who will be able to answer any questions that are specific to the leases or anything we may not know about the units over there. So we have a couple people here that should be able to answer any questions you might have. So this is a live session, and it's going to be saved to YouTube after it's recorded tonight. So if you're watching this after the fact, you can connect with us by email at altarevolution@sebhousing.com. I'm going to put that in the chat right now just so it's there. That is the email address that you can connect with us at for specific questions related to AltaRevolution. Like I said, if you don't, something comes up later after this session, or if you're watching it as a recorded session. Email is the quickest way to get in touch with us, but if you would prefer to call, that's perfectly fine as well. I'm going to put our phone number in the chat as well in case you need to contact us after tonight. All right, so the purpose of this information session is to give a little bit of background information on the affordable units. We're also going to discuss the application, eligibility, and lottery process, and what to expect after the lottery drawing. And just for some background information on who we are. So SEB Housing is an off-site affordable housing consultant group. We're not the on-site management team or the leasing office for the building. We have been hired by the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, and collect and review applications to determine applicants' eligibility in order to run the lottery. So in the initial phases, SEB would be your main point of contact rather than the management office, but further along in the process, you will be have more contact with the on-site management team or the leasing office at AltaRevolution. And so there's a few distinct steps in the process. The first is the process of completing and submitting a lottery application. And if you're found eligible for the lottery, you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the waiting list. Step 2 in the process is if your position on the waiting list is high enough, you're then going to be invited to complete a program certification with SEB Housing. And this is the point in the process where you will need to supply supporting documentation, including your income, asset, and tax documentation. You don't need to submit any of that with your initial online application that is relatively short. That comes later on in the process if you're high enough on these wait lists that will be populated after the lottery. And the third and final step in the process is completing a rent application with Alta's leasing office. So this is separate from the affordable housing program screenings that you've already gone through with SEB housing by that point. And the lease and rental screenings with the leasing office may include credit, rental history, background checks, that sort of thing. Once approved by the leasing office, that's the point where the households will be eligible to reserve a unit and sign a lease. So a few different steps, takes a little bit of time, but we're going to go through it all tonight, and hopefully you understand a little bit more about the process about an hour from now. So if you haven't already, go to our website at sebhousing.com, which I'm going to throw into the chat right now. A lot of questions coming in, I see there, but I'll just continue on. Once you get to sebhousing.com, if you click on affordable housing opportunities, and then I want to rent, you can select AltaRevolution. And at that point, you'll be taken to a page specific to this property. And on this page, you'll find a jot form link, which will take you to the online lottery application. That link is also in the description that is below this YouTube session if you want to go ahead and fill it out now, or have that up on your computer to fill out after this information session. The jot form link is there as well. We do recommend that you submit your application online using this link. It will be the quickest way for you to apply. But within that website listing, you can also find the paper version of the lottery application if you would prefer to submit that version. And there's also an information packet that is listed on the SEB housing posting for AltaRevolution. Both of those documents, the application and the information packet, are available in several different languages. And most of the information that I'll be discussing tonight can be found in the information packet. I'm not going to have time to cover everything that's in that document. I think it's 20 pages, so there's a lot of information there, and it really explains in detail what you can expect throughout this process. But I am going to cover the main points. So even if you're attending this session, it is recommended that you take a look at the information packet because it has a lot of useful information on this housing opportunity. So while we do encourage you to submit your application online, I did mention you can complete and submit a paper application. You can do that in one of several ways. You can email us at info@sebhousing.com. You can scan it to us. You can fax it to us. You can also send it to us by regular mail or dropping it off in our 24-hour secure drop box at our office in Needham, if you're in that area. Our address is 257 Hillside Ave, and the drop box is checked on a daily basis along with the regular mail. If you're completing that paper application, there's also a Somerville drop box location, which is located at the AltaRevolution leasing office on the corner of Auto Workers Way and Harold Cohen Way in Assembly Row. So you can pick whichever one of those options works best for you. But again, we do encourage you to get that application in through the online jot form link. And if you do submit it online, you do not need to submit a duplicate application. You only want to submit it one time. So you don't want to submit a paper application and a jot form application. If you have some doubts about whether or not it went through, you can always email us at the AltaRevolution@sebhousing.com email address. So try to just submit it one time to make everything as easy as possible and clear. Okay, so we encourage you to get your lottery application early. It is fairly brief. It should only take you about 10 minutes to complete. No supporting income, asset, or tax documentation is needed at this stage, but it will be required following the lottery if you are selected as one of the top households on the waiting list. The lottery applications are due by September 12th, so a little bit less than a month from now. And applications do need to be delivered to us or submitted online by that date in order to be considered for the lottery. You do not need to be a resident of Somerville to apply for this lottery. However, preference is going to be given to households who currently live in Somerville or who are working full-time in Somerville. And this means that households who provide verification that they are eligible for the local preference will have a higher position on the wait list and ultimately be given the opportunity to rent the affordable apartments at Alta first. Households with a documented need for an accessible unit will get top priority for disabled accessible units, so keep that in mind as well. AltaRevolution does have a website that you should visit if you want to learn more about the amenities, floor plans, the neighborhood, and I'm going to throw that into the chat now. So you have it. You probably have already looked it up if you're interested, but it is there now for you. All right, so a little bit more about the units themselves and the community. So AltaRevolution is a brand new 329 unit apartment complex located at 290 Revolution Drive and Assembly Row in Somerville. For anyone that is familiar with that area, it's a great location with a number of shops, restaurants, green spaces along the Mystic River. There's also a Orange Line T-stop at Assembly. And a total of 66 rental apartments will be made available through this affordable housing lottery process. 25 of those apartments will be rented to households with incomes at or below 50% of the area median income. An additional 25 apartments will be rented to households with incomes between 50 and 80% of the area median income. And then 16 apartments will be made available for rent to households with incomes between 80% and 110% of AMI. So the unit finishes in the affordable apartments are the same as those in the market rate units. They're going to feature stainless steel Samsung appliances, quartz countertops, in-unit washer and dryer. And the property, the community itself features a fitness center, a lounge, game room, creative studio, an open air terrace with pools and with a pool and a grilling station. And all units are pet friendly and smoke free. Parking spaces are included in the rent for households renting the 3-bedroom and disabled accessible units if those families do need a parking space. There will also be limited free parking for other households renting affordable units, and that will be based on a documented need for parking. Otherwise, there will be parking spaces available to rent at a discounted rate for affordable households of $112 per month. So there are affordable studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments being offered. There's 8 studio units, which range from 519 square feet to 562 square feet. There's 42 1-bedroom units, which range from 620 square feet to 1,022 square feet. There's 13 2-bedroom units, which range from 1,035 square feet to 1,350 square feet. And there's 3 3-bedroom units, which square footage ranges from 1,358 to 1,382. All right, so the units available for the affordable units at Alta are available for households of multiple sizes and multiple income tiers. And those income tiers are the 50, 80, and 110% that I just mentioned. Households who don't already have mobile housing vouchers like Section 8 or MRVP can have incomes as low as about $30,000 a year if they are a 1-person household. Or households may qualify with incomes up to $107,000 per year for 1-person households. So there's that range of area median incomes that these units are marketed for. So the minimum income amounts and maximum income amount limits for this opportunity depend on how many people are in your household. And as an applicant, when you're filling out your application, you're not going to be applying for any particular income tier. You're just going to apply for whatever unit size, studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom that you're interested in. And we'll make sure that you're placed on the waiting list for the appropriate unit based on your household income. Households are only going to qualify for 1 income tier. I'm not going to list the rent amounts for each unit, as those can be found in the information packet, which is also linked in the session description below. But the important thing is when you're filling out the application, you are putting in your best estimate of your household income. And then your application will be processed by SEB within 1 to 2 weeks, and you'll get a notice back from us confirming the units that you have been qualified for based on your lottery application. So once again, if you are interested in seeing the rent breakdown and the minimum and maximum income amounts for all of these units at Alta, you can go ahead and look in the description that is below the video in this YouTube session. There's a link there to the SEB housing website listing for AltaRevolution that has all of that info. So since we are anticipating there'll be many more interested and eligible applicants than available units, the apartments are going to be made available through this lottery process to households with annual incomes between that 50 and 110% of area median income for the Boston area. There are open houses scheduled for anyone who wants to go by and see the property. One of them is actually tomorrow evening, August 17th, which is tomorrow, Wednesday, from 5 to 7 p.m. The second open house that is scheduled by the leasing office is Saturday, September 3rd, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out the location of the property during those times. All right, so there are I'm going to talk a little bit now about the eligibility requirements and criteria for these affordable housing units. So there are 6 eligibility criteria that I want to touch on for these units. In order to qualify for the 50, 80, or 110% units, households need to meet these following 6 criteria. The first is that households must have income and assets that qualify within the parameters of the amounts listed in the ad and information packet that's posted on our website. And you may have seen it on the City of Somerville's website as well. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in just a few moments, so you know exactly how we'll be counting your household income. The second eligibility criteria is that households must have at least 1 person per bedroom. So for example, a 1-person household cannot apply for a 2-bedroom unit, and a 2-person household is not eligible for a 3-bedroom apartment. The exception to this is that if a household has a documented need for an additional bedroom, for medical reasons, for example, and then that would need to be supported and approved as a reasonable accommodation. The third eligibility criteria is that households cannot have more than $75,000 in total household assets, and that excludes retirement, college, and health savings accounts. So those 3 savings accounts do not count towards this $75,000 asset limit, but just keep in mind that income earned from retirement accounts will be counted as or counted towards your household income. The fourth eligibility criteria is that applicants cannot own homes at the time of program certification. So if you own a home now, it must be sold, meaning your name must be off the deed by the time of program certification or your lease signing. We're estimating that you'd be invited to complete the program certification around mid to late October, with units leasing in December at the earliest. So if you own a home now, just keep that in mind in terms of will that timeline work for you if you're trying to sell a property now and are interested in renting. The fifth eligibility criteria is unrelated and unmarried household members applying together will need to provide verification that they're currently living together at the time of the application. So in general, if you're currently living with someone as a roommate, you can apply with them. You just both need to submit verification of your current address. And then the sixth and final eligibility criteria is that all head of households cannot be full-time students. So a full-time student who is a head of household is only eligible if they are the co-head of household with someone who is not a full-time student and who currently live together and will live together at Alta. So for example, if you are a 1-person household and you are a full-time student, you unfortunately would not be eligible for this lottery. All right, so I want to circle back to the first eligibility criteria to explain more about total income and assets. So since these are affordable units, they're being made available to rent at prices that are significantly lower than the identical market rate units within the building. So for this reason, they're only being made available to households with incomes within the income tiers that we discussed. So a reminder again, verification of income is not required at the time of application, the time of your lottery application. applicants will be provided with a documentation requirements guide once their initial lottery application is reviewed. And if you're found eligible for the lottery, this guide is going to be helpful to you because it will detail exactly what types of supporting documentation we'll need from you, depending on your sources of income and assets. So, for example, it's going to tell you how many pay stubs we need from you, how many months worth of bank statements, that sort of thing. So although we don't need to verify your income right now, you don't need to submit any of this with your lottery application. I do just want to give a basic overview of how your income will be eventually be calculated. So income for this affordable housing program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. All income from household members is included, so this includes bonuses and overtime. The only exceptions are wages of minors, so anybody under the age of 18 who is working and earning a wage, we're not going to count that wage income. And then also for dependent full-time students who are working, we're only going to count the first $480 of any wages earned when determining eligibility. And we do need to count gross income, not net income. So the amount you make before taxes is what needs to be counted. Although, of course, we fully understand that is not the amount that you take home. Nobody takes their full salary home because of taxes and medical expenses, that sort of thing. But we do need to count gross income according to the program regulations. How we calculate a household's income is not one size fits all. Everyone's income circumstances are unique, obviously. So while some applicants have a weekly salary that is consistent throughout the year, other people are self-employed and are working seasonally potentially. In those types of circumstances, we might need to look further back in order to project what anticipated income will be for the next 12 months. Specifically for self-employed household members, you'll need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation. So your business expenses, if you are self-employed, will be taken into account. But for households who are not self-employed, it is always the gross income that we will count. In general, any income that you have been making, we're going to assume you will continue to make going forward, unless we have definitive documentation stating that you no longer will be earning that income source. So an example of that might be a written letter from your employer that stating that bonuses or overtime will not be paid or allowed in the coming year. That's something that we would be able to review and consider when determining your total household income. But we're not permitted to accept statements from applicants. So when you are verifying your income, you would not be able to submit something to us stating that you think you're going to work less in the coming year or anything like that. We would need to still look at your past income to project what you may make going forward. So when you're filling out the application, you want to really make sure that you are you're thinking of all of the income that you have coming into your household. And this could include wages, whether it's self-employment or wages from an employer, Social Security, SSDI, child support payments, alimony, retirement distributions, unemployment, workman's comp, pension, assets that generate income, that sort of thing. All households are also going to be required to submit copies of your federal tax returns for the last year. So the income eligibility requirements for each type and household size is included in the info pack, like I mentioned, and on the website listing. For the 50% area median income apartments, a minimum income has been established just to ensure that households have sufficient income to afford the rent and utilities. Utilities are not included in these rent amounts, so the tenant is responsible for them. So that required rent to income ratio is 40%. This means that a household's monthly income must be approximately 2.5 times the monthly rent. So the minimum annual income for a household of one is approximately that $30,000 that I mentioned earlier. So if you as a household know that your total annual income is far below $30,000, you're likely not eligible for this lottery. You would be considered under income. However, households with mobile housing vouchers can disregard that minimum income, the minimum income amounts that are listed because they do not apply. If you do have a mobile housing voucher, we do suggest that you check in with the agency that issues your voucher to confirm that the rents are within the agency's payment standards or max rent. The leasing office will also, at Alta, will also eventually confirm that with your housing authority or agency that the rents are permissible, but it would be best for you to know sooner rather than later if the rents will work for you, just to avoid any confusion or disappointment further down the line. So for applicants without a voucher, your household income must be between the minimum income floor that is listed on our materials and the program maximum income limits that you see there. These figures are dependent on your household size. And once again, I'm not going to list them here, but they are in our materials. So hopefully it is clear for you when you take a look. And then just to circle back to the assets eligibility criteria that I mentioned, the $70,000 is the household asset max in order for you to be eligible for the affordable units at Alta. This does not include the retirement, college, or health savings account balances that you might have. Even though it doesn't include any of those, you are still going to need to submit documentation related to any retirement, college, or health savings accounts. And that is because any income generated by your assets will still count as income towards your household gross income. And so assets that you need to verify for us further down the road are also going to include checking savings accounts, stocks, bonds, digital currency, even cash apps like PayPal and Venmo. So just keep those in mind. This will all be in the documentation requirements guide that you'll receive from us if you're eligible for the lottery. All right, so just to discuss a little bit about lottery eligibility. So if you're interested, once again, just try to apply as early as possible to get the process started. We want to mention too that you may apply for more than one unit size. So if you think you might be interested in both a studio and a one-bedroom, for example, you should indicate that on your application. There's really no downside to doing so. And we'll review your lottery application and contact you if any information is missing or appears incorrect. So you'll have the chance to go ahead and correct and resubmit if necessary. So if you are found eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent a lottery application number in the form of a dot and then a series of numbers. This is the number that will be drawn in the lottery. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name is not called during the lottery. It's not a ranking of any sort at this point. It would just be corresponding with the order in which we received your application. So if you were the very first person to submit a completed application for AltaRevolution, your number will be A.001. The letter that you received with that lottery application number is also going to confirm whether or not your household reported being a resident of Somerville, or that a household member works full-time in Somerville, because that would be qualifying you for the preference that I mentioned. Applicants who have indicated that they live or work full-time in Somerville are going to be required to provide supporting documentation after the lottery. So you want to be sure that you're completing that section accurately, because it's going to impact your placement on the waiting list. If you report that you're a Somerville resident on your lottery application, but then are unable to verify that when you're asked to do so following the lottery, you're going to forfeit your position on the waiting list. So it's really important. Just keep that in mind. Make sure that you're filling it out as accurately as possible. And then there's more information on the preferences for this lottery on page 10 of the info pack as well. That lottery eligibility email is also going to confirm the bedroom sizes that you've applied for, as well as whether or not you indicated that you needed a disabled accessible unit. So applicants who are in need of one of those disabled accessible units will have priority for those units over households who don't require the features of that unit. And then finally, along with the lottery eligibility letter, you're going to be receiving that documentation requirements guide, which is going to be provided as an attachment to that email as well. And it's going to provide you with a detailed list of all of the items that you'll need to submit prior to final approval by SEB Housing. So we suggest that you review that guide just so you're aware ahead of time of the documents that you would be required to have submitted to us if you are selected to move forward in reserving one of the units following the lottery. If at any time during this process you are found ineligible for the lottery, so for example, you're either under or over income, you'll be informed in writing, and you're encouraged to contact us with any questions. The lottery itself is going to be held virtually on October 11th at 6 p.m. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you'll be informed of how to join virtually if you would like to attend. During the lottery itself, every lottery number is going to be drawn, not just the top households for each waiting list. So while in general, it is more beneficial if your number is called early in the lottery, it's not going to be the deciding factor on whether or not you'll be moving forward in the process to lease a unit, because we do still need to sort the results by priority afterwards. So for example, if the first 10 application numbers are drawn and they all belong to households who do not qualify for local preference, those first 10 households are still going to be placed on the waiting list behind local preference households, because those local preference households have priority in this lottery. However, though, some households who are entered into the lottery may be found ineligible by the leasing office, or may ultimately just decide that they don't want to rent a unit at Alta. So if your number is drawn later in the lottery, you shouldn't lose hope. You may still have the opportunity to move forward in this process and rent one of the affordable units. Following the lottery, like I said, we're going to populate those waiting lists, taking local preference and whether or not your household requires disabled accessible features into consideration. And we'll do our best to send the lottery results and waiting lists to all applicants within 7 days of the lottery. When reviewing that email, you want to find your lottery application number, and from there, you will see where you fall on the wait list. And at that point, you'll have a better idea of whether or not you're going to be invited to move forward onto the next step in the process, which is to complete your program certification with SEB Housing. And that is when you're going to be submitting your supported documentation, income, asset, tax verifications. So following the lottery and the populating the wait list, SEB Housing is going to reach out to as many households on each waiting list as there are available units. So for example, there's 12 50% AMI one-bedroom units. We're going to be sending 12 invitations to the top 12 households on that 50% one-bedroom waiting list. Those households will be asked to submit all required documents to us within 5 days. If not all documentation is submitted within those first 5 days, we are going to send up to 3 incomplete notices to the applicant, giving them the opportunity to complete their application. And then if the household is not able to complete the application after those 3 extension notices, they're going to be issued a letter of ineligibility, and their position on the wait list are going to be forfeited. So you do want to respond to any emails you receive from us, even if you're just maybe not interested in the opportunity anymore. Just make sure that you reply, keep us updated on any delays that you're having on your end, update your email address with us if it changes during this process, just so we are contacting you, obviously, at the correct email address. You don't want to miss out on any of these notices from us. And then, of course, throughout this process, we're available for any questions or concerns. Following the receipt of any ineligibility or denial notice, you have the chance to appeal any denials, and the resources for appeals will be provided in writing in a detailed notice at that time. We also want to mention that SEB may be contacting households who are not yet at the top of the waiting list if we need to request documentation to verify a priority or preference, such as proof of Somerville residency. And we do this sometimes to speed up the leasing process. We want to make sure that the next households on the list are able to provide that preference documentation to us, maybe even before we're ready to screen their income. So if you're found to be program eligible by SEB, you will be issued what we call a proceed letter. and you will have 5 days to reach out to Alta's leasing office so you can begin that third and final step in the process, which is applying for a lease with them. And so again, the lease screening process is completely separate from the program certifications that you will have already gone through and completed with SEB. The lease screening will include completing a rental application, and then the leasing office will review credit background, rental reference checks. And the process is going to be the same review that they are conducting for market rate renters as well. So this is the point in the process where having a position near the top of the waiting list is particularly beneficial. If you're the top household on the list, you have the first chance to reserve an affordable unit. So if you have the top position on the 50% AMI one-bedroom list, you're going to have the first choice in reserving one of the affordable one-bedroom 50% units. And this is true even if another applicant who is positioned behind you on the waiting list happens to complete their lease eligibility process first with the leasing office. You'll be able to tour the units and make your decision based on whatever factors are important to you. So such as the location of the unit within the building, when it will be available for occupancy, whatever is important to you. The second household on the waiting list would then have second choice of the remaining units and so on. Households who fail to respond to deadlines or invitations from the leasing office would also be issued a notice of ineligibility, similar to those notices that I described that would come from SEB in previous steps. Let's see here. So we do want to caution you, even if you're the first household on any of these waiting lists, you do not want to immediately give notice to your current landlord because you're letting them know that you're going to move into a unit at AltaRevolution. You want to wait until you've gone through all 3 of these steps. So you want to wait until you've been approved by the leasing office and are ready to move towards signing the lease. So once leased, you're done with screenings, with income screenings until your lease renewal date. We hope you love the apartment and you want to continue living there beyond your first year of your lease. And if you do, you'll need to recertify your income with either SEB or the management office prior to your lease renewal. So you should go ahead and maintain records of your taxes, pay stubs, bank statements, etc., while living in the affordable unit. So if upon lease renewal, your income has increased and is now above the 50, 80, or 110% of AMI, that is fine. Households remain eligible for the affordable housing apartment as long as your income does not exceed 140% of that year's AMI. So pages 16 and 17 of the information packet list those 140% figures for different household sizes. If you're anticipating an increase in your income this year and are curious about those figures, you can go ahead and check that out. Looking at questions here, that about covers what I wanted to say, what I wanted to share from the information packet and just about this affordable housing opportunity or lottery opportunity at AltaRevolution. So I will just remind you again that if you're looking in the description of this live stream, you will see the application jot form link, and you will also see a link to our website listing for AltaRevolution. Any questions? I'll stick around just in case. There's also going to be, I don't think anybody here would need to attend a second one, but there's going to be a second information session on the 30th as well. So none of the units are only for, I see a question here. So none of the units are only for Somerville residents, but Somerville residents will have first priority. So if we're sorting the wait list for the 3-bedroom 80% AMI, it's going to be Somerville residents at the top of the wait list and then everyone else underneath. Can you apply now? Yep. The application, the jot form application became live, I think, on the 12th. So it's been open. We've been receiving applications. We're accepting them now. And there's the job form link again in the chat. There's a question here about employee-sponsored life insurance considered an asset. I don't believe so, but maybe Brian, who's on the chat there, would know for sure. I don't believe so. Okay. Thank you. The cash out value of life insurance is considered an asset. So if you're not sure about the assets that you have, you're gonna want to list everything that you think may be considered an asset on your application. What is the potential move-in date if you make it through the process? So the units are available now, but the lottery isn't until mid-October, and then I described all of the different steps. We do not anticipate anybody being able to move in until mid-December at the earliest. So that is what the timeline is right now. How do I go about making changes on a job form application that was submitted? So you can email us at that AltaRevolution. Yep, the AltaRevolution at stbhousing.com. We're going to go ahead and make that change for you, kind of on the back end where we're populating all of the submitted applications. Any priority for military veterans? Should we provide documentation? No, there is not. The only preference is for Somerville residents and full-time employees for this lottery. Anyone else? Got a few more coming in. If I only selected one bedroom and not studio, do I have to reapply to be considered for a studio? No, you can email us at that AltaRevolution at stbhousing.com email address and let us know that you would like to change the units that you selected, and we can go ahead and make sure that you are applying for both of those units. You don't have to submit again. Okay, so could you explain a bit more about the assessment in step 3 about the credit score? So I don't have the specifics of what Alta would be looking for. If the person that is on this live session wanted to describe a little bit more about the credit score check or the lease screening that's specific to Somerville, they could, or to AltaRevolution, you could jump in here, but I don't have too much information on that, Brian, or the person that we have from the leasing office here. I'll give them a few moments. Sure. So I have the person on the conference line now. So Raphael from Somerville is hoping that we could explain a little bit more about the assessment in step 3, which is the rental and lease application with the leasing office. So especially about the credit score, which is only one of the factors assessed by Wood Residential to accept the application, is what the chat says here.
Yeah, so the credit check basically runs a multi-point check on your credit history, your payment, your debt to income ratio, and a few other factors, and that gives you a point score, and that point score will determine whether you pass, fail.
Great, thank you. Could you hear that response, Raphael? Just let me know. And then parking available with the unit, is that extra? So Shireen, great, okay, Raphael, I'm glad you could hear it. So parking is free and included with the disabled accessible units, and then also with the 3-bedroom affordable units, but it is first come and you need to also have a documented need for the parking if you are not in a 3-bedroom or a disabled accessible unit. So not every affordable renter is going to have a free parking space. It's kind of going to be as needed if you are not in a 3-bedroom. And I think further up here, Brian, you had added some information. You can rent a parking spot if one is not available for you for the discounted rate of $112 per month. And there's a lot of other stipulations. If you scroll further up here, that would, and this is all in the information packet too, but those details are listed in the chat and the information packet. Anyone else? Yep, so there's a lot more information in that information packet. We wanted to try to, have the information session tonight be more about a broad overview and obviously to try to answer as many questions as you had in a live setting. All right, just a couple more minutes. I'll stay on here if there's anything else. If not, just go ahead into the details in the description underneath this this video, and you will see a link to both the JOT form to apply and the listing for our for AltaRevolution on our website. Yep, as Brian says here, the most important thing to do is to complete that lottery application as soon as you can. You have a little bit less than a month now, but it'll only take you 10 minutes. So get the lottery application into us. If anything appears to be incomplete or we have questions on it, we will reach out to you just to make sure that we have a complete picture and get you into the lottery. Is it one more question here? Yep, rental history, which is normally part of a leasing, lease screening. And then, yeah, Alta, for the leasing office here, if you want to confirm that for us, there's one more question in there about credit being used to make a decision on an applicant, but would we also, yep, rental history is factored in as well. Anyone else? All right, we encourage you to get your application in using that online form. If you're not comfortable with that, there is a link to a paper application, and there's a lot of different ways to get it into us that we talked about that are listed on the listing on our website for AltaRevolution as well. So thank you for joining, and we look forward to getting your applications. Have a good night, everyone.